What's up, folks? How we doing? It is sad to say this, but this is the last edition of Caught Stealing for the 2024 MLB season. We have made it. There are 10 games left. We still have some suspense with the playoffs, also suspense with if the White Sox will actually break the all-time loss record. Um, and if the Angels will break their franchise record for losses, which is interesting because the White Sox and Angels play each other
Against each
6 times
other.
in the last
Yep.
10 games. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, as you can see, I am joined today by James Grande. Colby Conway is traveling this week. So
Shock.
we get James Grande. How's it going, man? How are we wrapping up baseball season?
We're wrapping up pretty good. Some wins, some losses. Like
Yeah.
every fantasy season, you have some leagues that are going better than others. You and I
Yes.
have
Ours is
one
going
that
quite
is
well.
going really well in an industry league. So obviously, like we won't pat ourselves on the back yet. It is not over.
It is
We
not.
do have a comfortable lead in said league. We do have a very good team in said league, so it would be surprising if we didn't win. But it has obviously been a super competitive season. It's been a really fun fantasy baseball season, most fun in fantasy I've had in a while. I think I've changed my I don't want to rant about it too much, but I changed the way I played. I didn't do any head to heads. Just and I think it's just better playing a long season
Yes.
where it's not in a head to head setting. So I just changed it to all roto and category stuff, and it's just been tremendously more fun, truthfully, over the long haul. So um, for those looking for a change going into the 2025 fantasy baseball season, head to heads a little archaic, at least in fantasy baseball. Maybe it's something to freshen up the leagues and move in a different direction. Maybe some roto formats. But yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Sad that it's the last time I get to be a super sub here. But looking forward to helping everyone moving forward with fantasy baseball, like into the 2025 season and beyond. And you and Colby, just want to say, you guys had me on a lot, but you guys had an amazing show just between the two of you. And yeah, I mean, you guys are two of the best in the business at what you were doing on this show, and I'm just lucky to be along for the ride. So I appreciate you guys.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah, we I wanted to keep track of how many streamers we got right, but I just don't have the time to go back over 26 weeks and, and
Yeah,
get
that's
that
okay. That's okay.
get that list.
I'm sure
Um,
you got a spreadsheet. You got a spreadsheet. So knowing you just have to update a spreadsheet somewhere. I know you.
I
You
didn't
got
actually create one for this, so
it.
there's that. So I'm not creating one and then updating it and then put no,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not happening.
Yeah.
I do love a good spreadsheet though. I do.
I know
Um,
I know.
so we'll get a little bit into some season superlatives. We'll talk a little bit. We'll recap kind of what our preseason outlook on some folks were and who we hit on and who we didn't. Um, we'll talk a little bit about the actual MLB playoff picture with 10 games to go because it's tightening up pretty well.
It's
But
awesome.
first, show notes say Shohei Ohtani discuss.
I don't
We're
know. Yeah.
recording this Thursday night. It's the greatest offensive game a single player has ever had in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
It's not even debatable. Sarah
Yeah.
Lang's Twitter account is nothing but Shohei Ohtani facts, and it takes 4 minutes of scrolling to get through all of them. It's ridiculous. For those that may not be aware, he didn't join the 50-50 club. He founded the 50-50 club.
He created it himself.
Created it, announced himself as CEO and founding and head of the board by going 6 for 6 with 3 homers, couple of doubles, a single for good measure, 2 steals, and what, 10, 11 RBI?
Yeah, you had 11. I think it was 11. Let's
It was
10. 10
10,
RBIs.
yeah, 10 RBI and a couple of runs for also good measure, right?
Four.
Uh,
Four.
so it is by any definition the greatest offensive game any hitter has ever had in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
It, I,
I mean, dude, this season Like, like, you know, we've heard there's a lot of things you could talk about. Like, no, 50 home runs is not a record. No, 50
Right.
bases is not a record. And this 50-50 is a very arbitrary thing. Round numbers. People like round numbers, right? Like
Yeah.
everything. He has 51-51, but we're not
Yeah.
saying that he's 51-51. We're saying he's a 50-50 player, right? Like he's already exceeded that. In the same game he got 50-50, he surpassed it.
Correct.
He's a 51-51 player right now. Um, it's just unheard of. Dude, nobody his size
Yeah.
should be stealing bases the way he has. He
No, nobody his size should be able to do half the things this man can do on a baseball field.
Dude, I think like the home runs is like the whole season is magical. Shohei Ohtani has not been this efficient stealing bases, like even close. You look back to some of the years, 2021, right? He had his most prolific stolen base season. 26 stolen bases, 10 caught stealings. Okay.
Yep.
Year after that, 22, 157 games, 11 steals, 9 caught stealings. Barely
50-50.
50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 flip a coin. That's if you're gonna get Shohei stolen bases. Last year, better. 20 stolen bases, 6 caught stealings. Do you know what his splits are this year?
I think he's been caught twice.
4. Dude, 51 stolen bases, 4 caught stealings. What in the world is that?
That's like
That
Trey
is
Turner-esque when he went like 30 straight steals without being caught when he wrapped around the season.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Dude,
but
oh
Trey
my
Turner has
god.
speed, and like he's not nearly the size of Shohei Ohtani because
Like
Shohei Ohtani,
Shohei is a mammoth of a human.
he is large. Yeah, nobody else who's ever hit 50 homers in a season or more has had more than 30 stolen bases in a season.
What do you
I
what are
mean,
we doing with this? And people don't want
it's
to vote. People don't. There's people still trying to make arguments for other players.
because he didn't hit well with RISP. Okay, but when you knock them all in, it doesn't really matter.
Well, and he didn't play the field,
Okay,
even though DraftKings has him listed as a first baseman. Just
I
saying.
mean,
I had to throw one more jab in there for that.
I do think that Francisco Lindor is 1B for the MVP.
Correct.
Because if you look at the F4 gap between Francisco Lindor and anybody else on the Mets, it's insane,
I don't. I'm not
and he's
disagree.
been amazing.
It's not a
But
dude.
Shohei has, for all of the arguments you can make about Lindor carrying the Mets, for all intents and purposes, Shohei has carried the offense for the Dodgers. Freddie
Dude.
Freeman has not been Freddie Freeman. He missed some time as he should have because he was injured and then his son was in the
Yep.
hospital.
Yep.
Mookie's been out, and when he's been there, hasn't necessarily been Mookie.
You can go up the whole
Will
line,
Smith's
dude.
been okay. Gavin Lux has been in and out, and same with his bat. Max Muncy has been terrible when he's been healthy. Last year's rookie or runner up for the rookie of the year, James Outman, got sent back to AAA like 6 weeks into the season. The rotation for the Dodgers has been atrocious basically all year because they can't stay healthy. So it's essentially again a one-man show on a $400 million roster.
And he's cheap now.
Yeah, he's only 2 mil of that.
He's only worth 2 mil right now, Matt.
He's barely making what his translator stole.
Yeah. Well, wait. Yeah.
6
I mean,
months ago.
it was 6. I know. I mean, crazy that we're here after
Yeah.
that, right? Crazy that we're here after like he's not going to pitch and his
He may in the
interpreters.
postseason.
Yeah, crazy. His interpreter stealing.
Yes.
All right.
He got married to a secret wife nobody knew he had.
Yes or no answer, and we can move on from
Yeah.
one of the more magical seasons. Yes, just does Shohei Ohtani pitch in the postseason?
Yes.
I'm
He
very
threw a
torn.
bullpen. He threw a bullpen in Miami like either tonight or last night.
They are so desperate.
And who else do they have? They've already said that Yamamoto is not. They're
I
not
know he's not. I
pitching
know.
on short rest. They're not going to do bullpens with him.
They have
Glass now's
Jack Flaherty
not
pitching
healthy.
Jack Flaherty's pitching every day, baby, every day.
Ruler's terrible and not healthy.
Bobby
Bobby
Miller got sent
Miller,
down. He got sent
Bobby
down.
Miller got like just don't even show up, please.
Yep, he did.
Gavin Stone's been terrible,
He's hurt, and he's not
and he's
pitching for the
hurt.
rest of the year. They announced he's done for the year. So like,
Right. And
it's
their healthiest
Flaherty.
innings eating guy is no longer on the roster, which was James Paxton of all people,
True, true.
who is now also injured, by the way.
Who's
So
also and is retiring.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I
I'll
think you get him out there in
say,
the bullpen. He's not gonna start, but I think
look,
he
I'm gonna
starts. I think he goes in the bullpen.
okay. I'll let you have. I'm not gonna answer because I don't want to break your heart, but yeah,
I mean, it may very well be no, but they said that it was a non-zero chance. That doesn't mean that it's
I know, and
guaranteed.
it had been a zero. It had been zero up until this point.
Right.
It had been
Kershaw's
like
injured. Like
we're not
who are
pitching.
they starting?
Landon Knack, Justin Robleski,
I mean,
and Jack Flaherty. That's their postseason rotation.
pretty
Honestly,
soon they're gonna need a lefty. I'm available, man. Like
you
I
know what
don't
you
throw very
do?
well.
You know what you do? You just start stretching out Michael Kopech again.
Oh
Bring
my
back Kopech to the rotation. Anyways, let's move on to the
anyway,
playoff
yeah,
picture.
playoff picture. So the Dodgers are still in first in the NL West somehow. Oh, thanks to Shohei Ohtani.
Yep.
But the D-backs and the Padres are closing in on them. Padres are closer. You've got the Padres leading the NL wild card. Diamondbacks and Mets came into tonight tied. I believe 2 games ahead of the Braves, who are on the outside looking in, which is frankly remarkable given
Yes.
everybody they've lost.
Yes.
Um, the
All three of those
AL,
teams won, and all three of those teams won on Thursday.
yes. The Brewers clinched the playoffs on Wednesday night. Um, in terms of the AL, the Yankees clinched a playoff spot, but have not yet clinched anything else because the Orioles, try as they might to not
Yeah.
field very well, are still hanging in there. Um, the Guardians, as of Thursday, clinched a playoff spot. But that division, that AL Central is nuts because you still have the Twins, the Royals, and the Tigers are all still involved in the playoffs. Tigers are only a half game out as of Wednesday night.
They tied. So they are the Twins got walked off on Thursday.
Ooh.
So they are tied going into Friday because the Tigers
So
had
the Tigers
Thursday
are
off.
off. Yeah.
But the Twins own the tiebreaker. So technically Detroit is still behind. Um, and they actually are losers of the tiebreaker to both the Royals despite sweeping them and the Twins. So they need to outright finish ahead of them.
Yeah, they just have to have a better record down the stretch.
Yeah,
Right.
3 games against Baltimore upcoming for Detroit, and then I think it's either the Twins or it's no. So ready?
Yes,
3 Baltimore, 3 Tampa, 3 White Sox to end the year.
that's doable.
If you go 6-3 there, we could literally
I
see the
think they
Detroit Tigers get
I
in,
think they
dude.
make the playoffs if they go 6-3. I think the Twins would be on the outside looking in there. So we still have quite a lot of playoff spots to clinch and fill and divisions to settle because the AL West is also not settled. The Mariners are going to need a heck of a
Yeah.
run to beat
Yeah.
out the Astros, but that's not settled. Um, the Mariners, if they go on that run, could sneak their way into the AL wild card, perhaps, but it would take a monster collapse from 2 of the 3 AL
Yes.
Central teams um, to do it. But we'll see. We've seen these crazy runs happen before, and the Brewers have the question of just how far do you want to push it? Because I think they're only 2 games behind the Dodgers for the second seed in the NL, which would give them the bye.
They lost tonight, so
Yes, they
3.
did
So
because
3
my
they
wife
beat
is terribly happy about that because she's a Diamondbacks fan,
yes.
and the
Yes.
Diamondbacks are playing the Brewers. So
Now 3. But, if I had to ask you right now, since this is the last show, and
yeah,
who are your representatives in each for the World Series?
for
'Cause
the World Series,
I already have my answer for each for AL NL. I already have If you want me to go first, I'll go first. But
Yeah, go first. I may duplicate, but it
I
may
don't think
take
you're
my
going.
turn.
I don't think you're going to. I'm going to start in the National League, and I'm going to go. I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to say the San Diego Padres are the best team in the National League.
They're certainly getting hot at the right time.
They have the best bullpen in the I think in the
Well, when you
entire
pick up 4 closers at the trade
correct.
deadline, you better have the best bullpen.
I'm just saying, but that they don't strike out. They have the lowest strikeout rate in
Correct.
baseball. They have two superstars being superstars down the stretch in Machado and Tatis, and obviously good pieces around. They have all you need in this postseason. You need three good starters. They actually have four now with Darvish healthy, but Cease, Michael King, and Michael King, and I'm blanking. Joe Musgrove being
Yeah.
back. That is a nasty thing to deal with. I think they are my National League representative, and I think I'm going to be a little homer. I'm going to say the Yankees, as long as Clay Holmes isn't pitching in any insignificant spots, they make the World Series in the AL.
I will join
I won't
you.
pick a winner. I won't pick a winner, but I'm going Yankees Padres.
So we have a replay of the 98
Yes.
World Series, the one that started they won 12 of 13 World Series games in that stretch. The AL kind of feels like I kind of have to pick the Yankees because
Honestly, I should probably, if I'm going with the Padres, I should probably like double down and go Guardians, because like that they're also a team. Like if you get to the end of the game, it's over. But
yeah,
They can't hit like the Padres can.
no. I mean, Stephen Kwan doesn't strike out. He's like Luis Ariz, but like anybody else outside of Jose Ramirez doesn't really hit. So,
Yeah.
um, I will go Yankees in the AL. I mean, they've been the betting favorite
Yep.
to win the AL the entire season. In the National League, I think I'm going to go the Phillies.
Oh, don't let your wife hear you.
I think we go. Well, they've got like 4x Nats,
They
so
do. They do. That's fair. Okay.
they have a bunch of them. And so we get a replay of the 2008, 2009 World Series.
2009. Yeah, Yanks won
Yeah,
in
the
nine.
Yankees beat the Phillies for the last World Series they had 2009. So
Okay.
that would be my pick as well. Who knows? Maybe the D-backs get hot at the right time, but I just don't see the pitching there right
Yeah.
now to do that.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um, so I would say Phillies, Padres, NLCS.
I
I'd
like
be there
that.
with you.
Yeah, I like that. I like
I
that.
just think the Phillies also have horses in their
Yes.
rotation
Yes.
that protect the bullpen a little bit more, and then any given guy on that roster can jack a bomb and not strike out any given night. So
Yeah, no, I mean the NL seems way more challenging to navigate again, because
yeah,
like
because we've been sleeping on the Brewers the whole dang season, and then just blew
won the
the
division. Well, yeah, I mean they traded their best pitcher,
yeah.
they lost their best player to a back injury. They have a 20-year-old as their best position player right now. Like that
Their
is
guy who showed up, Christian Yelich, who was playing at a high level, is out
yeah.
and not playing.
Their closer missed three-fourths of the season, and
Yeah,
they like I mean
it's been
it's a
insane.
their manager, by the way, they have a rookie manager
Yeah,
in Murphy, so like it's been a lot of change. But then you look at like the American League, it's like Yankees have 89 wins, Guardians have 89 wins, but there's question marks with both those teams. The Orioles have been awful for 2 months. They
correct.
have no idea what they're doing, and their staff is horrible. Like top, like front to back, their staff is bad.
Yeah, the Astros are I just don't know where the pitching's coming from.
Yeah, the pit. Well, we don't know where it's coming from Framber and
Correct.
Hunter Brown, because Hunter Brown's obviously having an amazing season,
A
and he doesn't.
resurgence.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, he doesn't give up home runs. So like after those two, there's question marks. We don't know what is going to happen in the wild. I mean, the Tigers are literally the hottest team in baseball right now. They have the Cy Young that could. Their bullpen's been really good. The Royals obviously have one of the three best players in baseball. The Twins have been like. There's just no answers in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that the Royals go on a 2015
Yeah,
type run and
yeah,
just if you make a mistake, they make you pay.
Yeah.
but it's hard to see him doing that with Vinny P out.
Yeah, the Vinny P loss is for sure a big one because they're
And you
batting
got
like
questions
yeah,
about Reagan's innings, and you've got like,
yeah.
so with that, talking about sleepers and teams we didn't see coming, who are some players that we either got correct or we didn't in the preseason uh, sleepers and busts and rookies pieces? So I went back, I looked over who Colby and I wrote about in these pieces. We're going to mention some guys who we were right about in the sleepers, correction, who Colby was correct about because he mostly wrote that piece. We're going to start with the batters. How about Eugenio Suarez, Tyler O'Neill, and Vinny P?
Suarez has to be the most surprising fantasy player of the year for me. His season has to be one of the most fascinating of the year. He was literally being benched, straight up benched. They were
Yes.
going to start playing Blaze Alexander over him. That was the report. We're starting. Blaze Alexander started taking ground balls at third base. They were going to start putting him at third. Eugenio Suarez could not hit anything. Couldn't hit. Couldn't. You know what he has? He has 30 home runs and 100 RBIs with 2 weeks to go.
254 average, which is reasonable. Like,
Dude, the average almost doesn't like 250 might as well be 300 from where he was, right? Like that might as well just like of those guys, like obviously Tyler O'Neill, the power has been great. Vinny P, the run production was great till the injury.
he almost had he was at 19 homers.
Yeah. But the Eugenio Suarez thing for me, that has to be one of the best additions anyone made midseason in fantasy. Period. I mean, it had to be like because there's no way you like kept Eugenio Suarez through that like first couple months. There's just no way because it's like he hasn't really been good the last couple of years. This seems like this is gone, right? His
Yeah,
Cincinnati
he
days
was
are gone.
striking out at everything. Yeah, it was
No,
not great. And then all
no,
of a
that
sudden,
that is not what happened.
he found something.
He something he
Yeah.
had some type of out of body experience, and however we arrived to where we are today is good for Eugenio Suarez because that was one of the most shocking things I've seen all year. So
Yeah, that was
great call, Colby. Great call, Colby.
yeah, it didn't look if we were doing this in July, it would not have been
No,
no.
no, no.
Then on the pitching side, Mason Miller and Ryan
Yeah,
Pepio. What I don't however the
Pepio.
heck
Yeah, Pepio. Yeah, Pepio. Yeah,
Mason
yeah,
Miller and Ryan Pepio. Both
yeah.
I mean Mason Miller, there was campaigns for him to start the All-Star game.
Right, right. There was also campaigns to him, like obviously,
Get him out of Oakland, now Sacramento.
yeah. I mean, yes. It's very impressive for a 26, then 25-year-old. Oh, just saw his birthday was one day after mine. Happy birthday to us. A 25-year-old to be an all-star, strike this many people out, throw as hard as he does, be as efficient. And things could have even been better if he didn't spend time on the IL, right? He has
Correct.
27 saves and counting. He's clearing 30 saves. I mean, he was out when the A's were really good. Like
Yeah.
he missed that stretch when the A's were actually like, guys, we paying attention to what Oakland's doing right now? And like he missed some time. So yeah, I mean, I think that has been surprising. The Pepio thing, he also spent time on the IL. He also is ending his season strong, just had 12 strikeouts and 7 innings against Boston. And that's kind of what he's been this year. He's been a late round undrafted guy with a lot of strikeout stuff. And another just salute to Tampa for always finding these types of pitchers. Like
Or trading for
or
them.
trade, yeah, and just like finding and bringing them to them, whether it's
Yeah.
through trade, whether it's free agency, whether it's development, like however they just suck them all up in a vacuum and then they just turn into like quality pitchers. So
Yeah, like
um
Aaron Savali for like 7 months in Tampa was
correct.
like a Cy Young.
Last year Aaron Savali, not this year.
Yeah, not this year. Last year for 7 months.
Last year Aaron Savali for sure.
um, yeah. Now I know if you go and start prepping for next year and you look into Pepio's numbers. The FIP isn't quite as good as the ERA and some of the other things or whatnot. But just from a pure what we count in fantasy perspective, he's been perfectly solid. He's not like an SP2 or an SP3, but you're talking about a late round starter who got you SP4, SP5 numbers for
Yep.
120 plus innings. Hard to beat that. We're going to move on to our busts and name the guys who were actually busts because there was some surprising names in this article. If we go back and look at it, some of them did better than we thought. Now we're not going bust based off of they had an absolutely atrocious year. We're going bust off of were they worth the value where they were drafted. That's the criteria for bust here. So like Ellie De La Cruz was listed in there because we didn't see the value of a top 25 pick showing up with Ellie De La Cruz. Clearly, he sorted some stuff out.
Yeah.
He sold like 60 something bags.
Yes.
He's been dynamite, fantastic. The guys we're going to list are not don't fit those qualifications, okay? I'm just going to toss them out to you. Pick out your favorite bust or which one you thought was close, whatnot. Corbin Burns, Adelise, I have no more neck Garcia, CJ Abrams, Walker Bueller, and Justin Verlander. I understand Verlander was injured. It's not because of that. It's because when he's been healthy, he's been atrocious.
I mean, I'm gonna go Corbin Burns. I think that was the biggest miss, and also the best call made by. Was it you?
Yes.
Was that your article or was that Colby's article?
I believe it was also Colby's. He amended his write up. He was written up when he was still a Brewer. Then it was amended when he got traded to the O's. And he said basically he sees him as a 3.50 ERA guy and without elite strikeouts is 15 wins and 180 innings worth the third pitcher off the board. Well, guess what? As of this recording, Burns is sitting there with 14 wins and 182 and a third innings. Okay strikeout numbers and a
Eh,
3.06 ERA.
15th in fantasy points per starting pitchers. I
Right.
mean,
He was third off the board for starting pitchers.
I think like there's been a lot of things that have gone wrong for him,
Correct.
and it started with him betting on himself for a new contract. The first half versus second half were tale of two seasons. I think
Okay, I got news for you. He's technically the second pitcher off the board. Sorry, because
technically the second pitcher.
NFBC lists Shohei still as a pitcher who clearly was not a pitcher this year. So
Right. Second.
Spencer Strider, then Corbin Burns.
Yeah, so Bus if you took pitcher early, got it.
Also, Luis Castillo was fourth in that list.
Wheeler Castillo. I
Yep.
mean, I think the worst part about Corbin Burns, I mean, the second half has been just abysmal. 2 earned runs higher than it was in the first half. You said your quote was the strikeout stuff has been fine. It's been really subpar for the second
I mean,
pitcher off the
it's been
board.
okay. Not
Well, I'm just saying, like, this is a guy for his career has a 28.7% strikeout rate. This is a guy for his career averages 10.4 Ks per nine,
yep.
right? Age 29 season comes around, 8.1 career low. That is over 2.3 strikeouts lower than his career average. Going to a good ballpark, a
Correct.
very good ballpark, a very good lineup where we thought 14 wins could convert to 16, 17, 18 wins. You thought this guy can compete for the Cy Young. The ERA's been fine, been slightly lucky when you look at some of the expected numbers, and it's been terrible in the second half. It's just been a largely disappointing season because when you're talking about a guy where I need strikeouts if I'm drafting this guy, he's not
Correct.
even going to sniff 200 strikeouts. He's 29th amongst pitchers in strikeouts. 29th, Matt. I mean, he's behind Chris Bassett, Bryce Miller, Tyler Glasnow, who's made 22 starts this year. Like,
He's made 7 fewer starts than Corbin Burns.
I mean, it's just there's just no justification looking back at it to say like, yes, this was a anywhere close to SP2 in draft season. And pretty soon, I mean, it was pretty quickly like, oh, he's the best. I mean, Strider got hurt his first start of the year. Like, so I don't know. Corbin Burns was the biggest bust for me. It was a nails pick by Colby, just solely based on ADP and how things have finished for him.
Yep, I would agree. I will be a little bit of a homer here and pick CJ Abrams as my biggest bust.
Yep.
Um, he was expected to be an absolutely dynamite generally 5 category contributor, maybe a little light on the RBI, and help you with average, get a pretty hefty amount of steals, be an impactful leadoff hitter for the Nats. Basically, none of that happened. I mean, let me put it this way. He started off incredibly well in the first half, right? He was a no doubt all-star based on the first 2 months of the season. After that, not 100% sure what happened. Um, he's going to wind up with 15 fewer, 17 fewer steals than last year. A couple more homers, but less runs, about the same RBI, and the slash line is basically the same. So for a guy you drafted that high to basically repeat his season when he wasn't drafted that highly the year before, it didn't pay off. It's not anywhere close. So I would go from a hitting perspective, it's hard to get a bigger bust, in my opinion, than CJ Abrams. At least in this article, let's put it that way. I mean, if you really want to nitpick, I think we could find some. I mean, clearly Corbin Carroll. Um, you know,
Him
I
and
would
Julio.
put
I mean, him and J Rod.
Julio Rodriguez would be because at least Corbin Carroll has saved it in the second half,
Yes.
and his extrapolated line is like 115 runs and 130
Yeah.
RBI and like
Yeah.
40 a year.
Yeah. He's still gonna end up being fine, but
Yeah,
like obviously the slow start really derailed anything close to like what could have been a top 10 season.
yeah, but Julio may wind up with his worst offensive season
Oh,
of his
yes.
young career.
Yes.
There's still a little bit of time to help the counting stats, but like not in terms of, I mean, average and slash line is toast. Um, and then rookies, I'll go after myself here and some of the guys that I missed on that I thought would have better years. That did not. Evan Carter, when he was healthy, wasn't hitting anything,
No.
not even hitting his weight. Noelvi Marte, I wrote it up before the suspension, and then I left him in there because I thought, hey, maybe for a second half, he'll be fine. Nah, he's been invisible for a team that's been practically invisible for the second half of the season. Jackson Holiday, look, he's still going to be excellent. He's still going to be fine. He was not good when he came up. Um, couldn't crack that rotation of middle infielders and young players that all look the same for Baltimore. They clearly have a type. All of their dudes look exactly the same. And then Matt Mervis. I'm not even sure he actually wound up registering an at bat with the Cubs this year. So it was that. I will say there were some gems in that rookies piece that I'll point out. I said honorable mentions were both the outfielders for Boston and Rafaela and Abreu. They've both been very nice. I didn't put Jung Hoo Lee on this, list of misses because he was doing perfectly fine before his
Yeah.
shoulder
Yeah.
injury. Um, Kyle Manzardo has been great down the stretch.
Yep.
Kyle Harrison is starting to figure it out. So there's a few. Wyatt Langford's been great. Jackson Churio was in this list. Yamamoto, aside from the injury, was great.
Yep.
So, a little bit of mixed bags, but that's kind of what you get with rookies, which is why you never go fully hog wild for rookies
Yep.
in fantasy drafts,
Yep.
especially baseball, because who the heck knows? I mean, Jackson Holiday looked like a guy who literally could not miss anything in AAA and got to majors and missed everything.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, let's turn the tables a little bit, and we'll go with picks that we felt really great about this year that we made, either value picks or ones that we had a strong conviction about, and it worked out for us. There's certainly a few of those that we have shared. So we'll put them out here on the podcast. What's one for you?
I will go Tarek Skubal. I was very bullish on Tarek Skubal. I outbid the field in an auction league, in my one auction league this year, and you and I drafted him in the fourth round in our FSGA format as well. And I mean, we saw it at the end of last year that this guy is an elite pitcher. And when you're talking about young lefty coming off, you know, obvious injury concern, but in injury concern that he had obviously put past him. Velocity was great last year. All the peripheral stats were better than his stats actually even ended last year. There was a lot of confidence, from a standpoint where like even if the Tigers were bad, I thought Tarek Skubal would be obviously a guy who has thrown a bunch of innings in the past, so it wasn't something that ever would have really limited him. I thought there was a chance at the end of this year. There was. They said it. And then they won every game since then. So like actually we take it back. Tarek Skubal's not going to be limited anymore. But I thought the 180 innings was a possibility. It has been and probably gets to 200 if the Tigers want any chance at the playoffs. The strikeouts have been elite. He leads. I think he still leads baseball in strikeouts, and if he doesn't, he's second to Chris Sale. I'll confirm that right now. He's second to Chris Sale per Chris Sale's last start on Thursday. He's 4 strikeouts behind Chris Sale. So like, there's a live possibility in his final 2 starts that Skubal ends the race on top. He'll be first, second, or third because Cease's right there. So like, I was strongly convicted that Tarek Skubal was a top pitcher. Did I think he was going to be the top pitcher or the number 2 pitcher? I mean, I wasn't totally convinced there, but I thought all the numbers and the strikeouts and how good of a pitcher he is could put us there. And boy, did it ever. So I'll go Tarek Skubal as like the pick that I was most convicted on, at least like earlier in drafts, that I was willing to pay extra in auction and reach for a little bit in redraft.
Yeah, along those lines, we'll go with a guy you just mentioned, Chris Sale.
Yeah, salute
We
to
got
you. That's you. That's all you because you took Sale early,
Yeah, we took him what in the tenth
10th round.
round,
Yep.
which was certainly ahead of his ADP.
Yep.
I tried to get him in my auction league. I was outbid for him, and at the point where he came up, I didn't really want to stretch my budget at that
Right.
point. So I'm a little bit bummed because I was in on him,
Yes.
and I came up just short. I did follow up with a guy who I was convinced on as well. We'll talk about in a minute. But like all of the numbers coming out of Boston were that he still had it, right? Even if you look at his last year in Boston, the 102 and 2/3 innings, because he couldn't, I think he got injured on the bicycle that year. He like ate a donut the wrong way and sprained something. It was a bad run of time here in Boston. But in the 102/3 innings over 20 starts, he had almost 11K per nine, right? His walks, not that bad. You could live with the 2.5 walks per nine if you're getting 11 Ks per nine. The home runs, okay, he was getting a little bit lit up, but that does tend to happen with power pitchers early in starts. Plus, the AL
And
East
in
is not
Fenway,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
and in Fenway, and
But like his 4.30 ERA is one thing, but the 3.61 expected ERA
yep,
and the 3.8 FIP and the 3.72 expected FIP and his Sierra that was also like 3.50 all tells you he pitched basically a run better
yes,
than he was credited with. Then he goes to Atlanta, who's a pitching whispering team. They can sort guys out, right? Change of scenery. If he can just stay healthy and on a mound,
Undeniably talented.
guy is still an ace. He still has it. It's borne out. 172 and two-thirds innings as of the recording tonight through 28 starts. 17 and 3 record, despite the Braves not having their top offensive guys basically all year.
18-3 after Thursday start.
Oh,
He did win
Fangraphs
Thursday.
Fangraphs has not updated the Thursday start yet, so apologize for that.
He
But
is
yeah,
now,
you
Matt, do you
have
want to hear this? He is half a fantasy point ahead of Tarek Skubal right now for the lead. He has
that's wonderful.
half a fantasy point more than Tarek Skubal.
And 2.35 ERA prior to tonight, so probably going up a little bit. He gave up 205
Little
innings.
238, yeah, 238, but
Yeah,
leads the league.
but still, 238. You've got 11.5K per nine right now out of him.
Yep.
So yeah, I felt really good just being like, well, the numbers are telling you he still has it. He just can't get injured, and he didn't, and it worked out.
Yeah, I think being high on the two guys
Who
that
are
are
gonna
leading in
win?
fantasy points and win
Who
Cy
may
Young
win Cy Youngs?
is a good thing.
Yeah.
Also, like we're not just trying to pat ourselves on the back. We did actively draft these players,
Yes,
and um,
they are both on our championship
so
FSGA
so
team.
we did like both the players, and we'll just do like quick offensive salute to Jaron Duran.
Yes,
We took him in the 12th round. He was
I
someone.
I held him. I almost traded him away, and then I was like, "Nah, man, there's something special going on." So I kept him and did
Yeah,
not trade him away. And that's something special as a 2030 season.
with 40 doubles,
Yeah.
20 triples, and
Also, like the first player ever to do that stat line.
yep,
Not that it
yeah, and
necessarily matters. It's just even numbers stepping up people
yes,
like that.
even numbers. And at the end of the day, he was a 12th round pick that is based on where he is currently gonna not fall out of the top 10 in fantasy production. I know he's sputtering a little bit, but um, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he leads the league in at bats too. He has 180 hits. That's fourth in baseball. Like it's been a magical season for Jaron Duran. And if you drafted him, you know, or even bid on him, I got him for $9 in an auction, and we drafted him in the 12th round. So
Yeah,
uh,
I have them for $1.50 in $100
yeah, and
league.
then like that's I mean, so like you would
I
have
mean, I get
spent
to keep them, but I I did. I
in like a normal $250 setting in an auction, you were about where I would have been. Like where you were about where like the $9. Like you sit
yeah,
somewhere in
a
that
tad
range.
under, yeah.
So like discounts either way. But I'm excited for the next segment because we're doing some superlatives here. I'm excited.
Yes. Yes, we are. So, good old fashioned like yearbook superlatives.
Yep.
Who is your fantasy hitting MVP? Pretty
Shohei
hard
Ohtani.
not to go with Kevin Durant.
Shohei Ohtani. I mean, it's Shohei. He has 100 fantasy points more than Aaron Judge,
Yes.
who hasn't hit a home run in like a week and a half.
He
It's
hasn't hit one since he was on Paw Patrol.
Rubble and crew, but you would know that if you were a true fan. Yeah, it's Shohei Ohtani. Just let's get on with the next question.
Yeah, it's
next
clearly
next question.
Shohei.
Next question.
Yeah, there's not really
No.
anywhere else to go. I mean, if you want to do it based on like ADP and whatnot, then I guess Jaron Duran can sneak into the convo because you took him outside the
Yeah.
top 150 and he's a
Sure.
top 10
Sure.
scoring guy. But it's clearly Shohei. He's winning your league for
Yes.
you in multiple categories.
Correct.
Fantasy pitching MVP.
I mean, it has to be one of the two. It's either Scooble or Sale. Um, I don't. There's not like separation. They have the most wins, the most fantasy points, the most
Yeah.
strikeouts. There's no separation between those two. They are quite literally separated by half a fantasy point. That's how close it is. And third place is Zach Wheeler. He is math. He's 38 points behind Scooble for second. So like I will say it's a tie between Sale and Scooble, and then maybe I guess depending on who finishes the season better, you can just give them the award, right? Like it's
Yeah. So I will again kind of use ADP as a tiebreaker, and I'll give it to Chris Sale
Chris Sale. Yeah, okay.
because he was 48th. He was the 48th pitcher off the board according to NFBC. Zach Wheeler was third, basically, assuming you take Shohei Ohtani out of the equation.
Sure.
And Tariq Skubal was the 12th pitcher off the board. So, in terms of what you are getting versus what you expected, I
Sure.
would give it to Chris Sale, who like came off the board after Tanner Scott and Yuri Perez and Ryan Helsley
Great.
and Paul
Crazy.
Sewald.
I mean, Helsley's been great, but the rest of that list, like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Um, you could toss Dylan Cease in there a little bit, I guess,
Great bounce back here.
because
Great bounce back here.
he's been phenomenal. Also had that no.
Yep.
Um, so congrats there. Moving on here, we got biggest heartbreak.
I like this category. So I asked you to do this. I think
Yeah.
it's fair. Okay. I think that this is fair. I'm gonna go with a team, and I'm gonna exclude Chris Sale from this list. But I'm
Okay.
just going to blanket statement the Atlanta Braves were the most disappointing fantasy team in like up
Yeah.
and down the list. If you would take out Sale and you take out Marcelo
Marcelo
Zuna,
Zuna.
yes, you take out those two players. Obviously, we had the Acuna injury early. That was super sad. Obviously, Spencer Strider was the top pitcher off the board. That was super sad. Matt Olson's going to end 30 and 100, but that is just solely based on this last month or so, like
Yeah.
of play. Austin Riley's been out extended period of time. Ozzy Albies been out an extended period of time. Michael Harris has been out extended period of time.
Jorge
Max
Soler didn't really do anything when they brought him back in.
Jorge Soler has not been great. Max Fried is currently SP or pitcher 41 in terms of
Yeah.
fantasy production. He was drafted. His ADP was 62 going into the year per NFBC. So like
But hey,
that's
Rizal Iglesias has been good.
Rizal Graces. They've had three per Sean Murphy was a
Yeah.
guy that was a popular catching option. Charlie Morton has been up and down. People thought Kelnick would like there has not been anything to like. Reynaldo Lopez is an outlier, but like he wasn't even drafted. He was drafted 400th. Like no
Mhm.
one, there's not a lot of leagues that are even drafting that many players. So like biggest heartbreak for me was the team that had the most wins in baseball and was by far the best team in baseball for 162 games last year. They outside of three players on a 26-man roster, that is by far the biggest disappointment in fantasy. The biggest heartbreak was the Braves for me, bar none.
I would agree. I'm gonna go a little. This isn't like.
More traditional than a full team.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I had Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson both in my
Okay.
home league. Matt Olson has definitely been a disappointment. Freddie
Yes.
Freeman, to an extent. I mean, the
Yeah.
power definitely hasn't been there. Steals, he definitely curtailed. But how about we go with? I'm just going to toss this out here. I was really hoping that Brandon Drury was
Mm,
going to be a pretty solid multi-positional guy that you could kind of take in the mid rounds and provide you with nice stat line because in 2022 and 2023 back-to-back years he was 26, 28 home runs,
yep.
80 something RBI, like 70 runs, 260 average. Not this year. I know he got hurt, but he still played 89 games. He's hitting 166 with 4 homers, no steals. He's got 27 runs and 15 RBI. I know the entire Angels lineup sucks, but still, he was a guy that I thought would be at least decent in the middle infield and could, offer some multi-position. I'm checking to see what his ADP was going off the board. I mean, it's not huge, to be honest. Um, but still, like to get such little, like it actively hurts you to play him. Um, he just completely pooped the bed. I know there was an injury, but still not ideal. Obviously, the entire team was. Oof.
I mean, I don't disagree if you're like personally invested in a player and
Yeah,
he puts up a sub Mendoza line season,
but
right?
in general,
Um,
he's not the biggest heartbreak in all of
yes,
fantasy. That's
yes.
clearly like you could give it to Corbin Carroll for the first half.
And J Rod for the whole season. Like I
J-Rod
think
for the whole season, right?
if there was a poll attached to that, I think Julio Rodriguez would probably win because he was,
Or
a
anybody
top.
who drafted in January who lost Spencer Strider.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So like, yeah. I
yeah,
would say like those two or Acuna because he was number one overall. Like it would
correct.
be Corbin would be in the top five, but I don't even think he'd be there. Like this was Matt's personal heartbreak for
Yeah,
Brandon
the
Drury.
guy I've had a vendetta against for the entire. I mean, Mookie could be in that conversation because he was top four. Kyle
Right.
Tucker and his bruise slash busted shin that everybody was knew was broken in June, except for the Astros.
Except for the Astros, yeah.
But yes, these are guys that was a guy that I was personally invested in and thought I was getting another 25 homer 260 season out of a
Right.
second baseman, which is perfectly usable. Nope,
No.
not
No.
from Brandon Drury this year.
No.
On the opposite side of that spectrum, comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this award can go to about three players. It could go to an Atlanta Brave, but I'm going to go out to the team that I told you I think is going to win the or make the World Series. And I don't even see this player on my list here. Where was he drafted? Here he is. Jurickson Profar, Matt.
Oh,
Do you know what Jurickson Profar's ADP was this year on NFBC? Without looking, just take a guess at the number. Like just look. Just like you might have already looked. I don't know.
I mean, I quickly scrolled and didn't see him. I ran into the same
Okay.
problem you did. I'm gonna guess 600 something.
480 might as well be 600, right?
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
might as well at that point be the
I
number
mean,
you
hell,
just said.
Jackson Wolf was being drafted ahead of Jurickson Profar.
Jurickson Profar is currently the position player 20 on the year. He was drafted 480. He is leading off for a playoff team. He has an outside chance at 100 runs. Probably not going to get there. Realistic, he's 90. It's going to be 90 runs, possibly 25 home runs, 85 RBIs, 74 walks is amazing, and he'll probably get the double digit steals with 10. 480 for Jurickson Profar, who is once, as everyone who's followed baseball for a while, like the can't miss prospect in the game. As
He was
Matt does
number one.
prospects
He was the number one overall prospect in baseball when he was in the Rangers system.
in before this decade, but 2 decades ago.
I
Two
mean,
2 decades ago.
honestly, yes. Like
No,
maybe 2010. I don't
yeah,
know.
like actually, it was like I believe it was 2009, 2010 when he was the number one prospect in baseball, and 14 years later, Jurickson Profar has found his home in San Diego and has been a top 20 player in fantasy this year. Salute to him. That's my comeback player of the year, Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, there we go. I'm trying to figure out what. Um. Oh, there you go. Number one overall prospect in baseball, Jurickson Profar, shortstop from San Diego Padres, um, 2013.
2013. Okay, so
Dylan
11
Bundy was
years.
number two.
Interesting. Dylan Bundy.
Oscar Tavares, may he rest in peace, was number three. Will Myers, number four.
No batting gloves.
Taiwan Walker was five in that list. Then Travis Darno, who was one surprise prospect. Ahead of, by the way, Jose Fernandez, Zach Wheeler, and Garrett Cole.
That list is wrong.
And Tyler Skaggs.
That list is really wrong. All right,
Yelich
rest in
was
peace.
13th. Okay, we digress. Um, my comeback player of the year, another guy I personally invested in, Ronaldo Lopez
Love it.
for the Braves. Again, 8-5. You realize he's got more wins, I think, or the same number of wins as Logan Gilbert?
Yep. That's yeah.
Logan Gilbert's been robbed of more wins than maybe
He
any pitcher
has.
this
He
season. It's
has. He
unbelievable.
sure has. He sure has.
Um, in 128 and two-thirds innings for Lopez, which, by the way, goes the last time he threw that many innings in a season, you have to go back to the first 2 years he was a White Sox. 9.5 K per nine, not a terrible walk rate, a 2.03 ERA. Now,
Yeah, it's
clearly,
ridiculous.
I mean, his expected ERA is 2 runs higher than that. His FIP is not so bad at 3.08, but either way, just spectacular for a guy that nobody figured out why Atlanta was signing him to come out and throw a 2.03 ERA over almost 130 innings. You'll take that every time. He was also drafted really far down, like maybe like 600. I don't know. Like basically
It
nobody wanted
was
him.
it was under he was well, he was coming into the year as a starter. That had not
Yeah.
happened. He had not been a starter, a working starter. He had success out of the bullpen last year.
Yes. He was being drafted at 400.
It's absurd. Absurd.
Yeah, like right there with like Orlando Arcia and Travis Darnell. Um, so yeah, so that's my comeback player of the year. Biggest bust we are going to double dip on in 2025.
Do you want me to start or do you want to start this one?
You can start this one. I'm very curious as to who you're going to go with.
So I'm I'm a little torn because I think the answer, not excluding injuries, because I'm not going to exclude injuries here, because like obviously Acuna Strider right off the top is like the obvious answers.
Right.
I think the non-injured player answer is obviously Julio Rodriguez.
He can't be this bad 2
Because
years in
he
a row.
yeah, but my only beef really with Julio Rodriguez is
Strikeouts?
just the ballpark that he plays in is so hard to like hit in
Yes.
81 times a year. And like he is obviously good enough where he only has 22 steals on the year. That obviously there's positive regression there. 16 home runs, we view him more as a 30. I mean 30, he's more of a
He literally
30-30
was
guy.
30-30 last year.
Yeah, so like that's where I'm like I think that's the easy answer, and I think that's just kind of the answer I'm going to go with. Because like obviously I believe in the talent. I really believe in the talent. But I don't like I don't like, just simply put, I don't like his ballpark that he plays in. And because you just even see it. All the Mariners starters, 2 ERAs. All the
Yeah.
Mariners on the road, 3, 4, 5 ERAs. Like it's
In
just
the last
impossible to hit.
3-year rolling average, T-Mobile, or what was formerly known as Safeco, has the lowest BABIP of any park
I
in
mean,
baseball.
dude, it's just really hard to look at that and be like, yeah, man, I think like think I wanna just test my luck again and use another pitcher from or use another hitter in Seattle. Like we have now seen a large that is a 240 game sample last 3 years, right? Like
Yep.
that's not just like your average sample size. So I'm gonna go with the chalk answer and go Julio Rodriguez, just excluding injuries, but it still does like the ballpark thing is the devil on my shoulder. Like, don't do this, or that's the angel rather, right? The A would be the angel on my shoulder. Like,
Yeah.
he plays in a bad ball. Devil's like, draft him again. Doesn't matter about the ballpark. So I'll go J Rod, and it's gonna be J Rod season all over again in 2025.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with you know what? I'm gonna double dip on Pablo Lopez.
I mean, so I posted it on Twitter. I said on these airwaves when I filled in for you that I thought Pablo Lopez was going to be a top 5 pitcher second half. Boy, has he been good. He has been so good to end the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like the opposite of Corbin Burns. He's only been good for half the year, and it's been the second half of the year.
He was so unlucky in the first half.
So unlucky. I tried to tell
Unbelievable.
everybody I possibly knew who would listen to me that's all I would talk about to my 4-year-old son and my wife. Like, yo, guys, Pablo Lopez is getting so unlucky. I need you to see
Yeah.
these numbers, So
By the way,
I
his ERA has dropped to 3.84 in the second half.
yeah, it's good.
It's still 0.3 of a run behind the expected ERA and
Yeah,
FIP and expected FIP.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's actually a half a run behind the expected FIP. So I'm going to go Pablo Lopez. He's still an ace. He was taken third, top 40 overall. I have no qualms about drafting him again. He's a high strikeout, ace caliber guy, plays in a pretty good ballpark, and the AL Central's going to continue to be mediocre at best. If you want a hitter, it's hard for me to count either of these two guys as bust, but I'm going to go with Kyle Tucker and Royce Lewis. I'll be in on them again
Ugh,
next year. Kyle Tucker was obliterating baseballs before one obliterated his shin. Um, and Royce Lewis has all of the skill sets to be really good if he can just stay healthy, just like Byron Buxton. Um, who, by the way, I think set a career high for games played in the season this year, to
he
be
did.
perfectly honest.
He did.
But my main one is Pablo Lopez,
Okay.
and then I'll be back on Kyle Tucker. The guy's a
Love that one.
30-30 season waiting to happen as long as this shin's in place. Um, Then we're gonna kind of flip this one a little bit. We're gonna go biggest reach we're double dipping on in 2025.
You start this one.
So a guy we were, I guess, I don't know, where was Sale going again? Where was his? I'm gonna go with Chris Sale.
150. 150.
132, and we took him a little bit ahead of that
Mhm.
um, in our draft. I'll do it again. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason not to. He's healthy. He's elite. He's gonna win the NL Cy Young. Um, or should, let's put it that way. I would reach again for him. I would say he's perfectly fine as an SP1 going into next year, especially since you have to assume that Spencer Strider's coming back, which means that if Strider is the one in Atlanta, then
Yep.
Sale's the two, and then you have co-aces, and then you're getting better matchups.
Yeah, I mean Atlanta. I mean at full strength, Atlanta's you know right. It's like
Yeah, I mean,
we know
exactly.
what they are if like they're fully healthy. I mean that's the best roster in baseball if they're fully healthy.
Yep, I would reach on Chris Sale again for sure.
I'm gonna go a little different. I think you and I might have differencing opinions on this, and it makes for I guess maybe better content. I like drafting state relievers early. I would absolutely, undoubtedly, no matter how high his ADP got, draft Emmanuel Clase as high as I possibly can because I would reach for Emmanuel Clase. That is the best closer we've seen since who? He
Gagne
is Gagne during his steroid run.
during his 80 straight saves.
He is the best closer in baseball. It is not even not even close. The ratios are elite. Nobody gets on base. He doesn't walk anybody. The
Three
game
straight
is
40 save
the
seasons.
game is over after 8 innings if you are losing to the Cleveland Guardians. So I am one again that I do three 40 save seasons. Outside chance he gets 50 this year. That is money in the bank for every ratio that you have, right? Every
Yep.
single one. Sub 7.75 whip in 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah, what's lower is Whipper's ERA this year?
It is
They're the
exactly the
same.
same.
Trick
Exactly the
question.
same. Yeah, I mean, it is
0.64.
that's a player that I would reach on. And again, I'm comfortable with taking relievers early, even if that's my first pitcher. Because as we saw this year, like Chris Sale was a 10th round pick, right? 12th
Yeah.
round, 11th, somewhere in that ballpark.
So,
There,
question: Clase went off the board last year at 61.6.
I would,
He
I
was
would.
the second Guardian off the board behind Jose Ramirez, who went 15.3.
What's the question?
Do you how high, like how much higher than 61.6 do you think Clase goes?
Hader was so Edwin Diaz was 49. Hader was 54. I think we see him earlier than Edwin Diaz at 49. I think we see like Class A mid 40s, 45. I could see him in like the 45 range, 10th, 11th pitcher off the board.
Yeah, Diaz was 12th off the board, 11th off the board this year
I
at
think I
49.
think it's realistic that um you're getting 50 saves at, in the fourth round with the best ratio helper in the game. So that would be someone that I'm going guaranteed right now that I have more exposure to than I did this year. I am guaranteeing it that next year I will have more Emmanuel Clase than I did this year.
We'll see. I don't tend to like to spend a lot
Right.
on saves
There's our
in my
different there's our
auction.
different yeah, there's our difference right there.
Mainly because it's so dang expensive for what is typically, in my opinion, basically a one category guy. Sure, they do help your ratios and whatnot, but I would say that if you get a starter who's in the 3.5 range, that pitching 160 innings at a 3.5 actually keeps your ratio safer than 70 innings of a 1.2 ERA. Um, that's my only hesitation. I'm trying to look up exactly how much uh Class A cost in my home league this year. Oh, he was kept, so that guy got a serious bargain on that one. But he will have to be purchased, and he's probably going to be incredibly expensive. That's my only hesitation with that. In a snake draft, no problem picking up saves.
Sure.
But in an auction, I typically don't like to do it because it's so much for one category.
Sure. Sure.
But as we move on here, we got a couple more to go in this what is turning into a marathon season finale podcast,
Yeah,
giving
that's
you
okay. That's okay.
giving you everything you could possibly need to hold you over until preseason pods start. The top 10 fantasy point scorer who's going to be a bust in 2025. So the top 10 fantasy point scorer, hitter or pitcher in 2024, who will be a bust in 2025.
Yes. So I am currently looking at a list compiled by Fantasy Data, and their top 10. And I think we'll say this together and save some time. It's a pitcher. The answer is a pitcher. The answer is a middle-aged pitcher in his 30s. He is currently the seventh ranked starting pitcher on the board. He was basically undrafted in fantasy formats. Do you want to just say it together, Matt? One, two, three. Seth
Yeah.
Lugo. Yeah, I
In
mean it's Seth
order,
Lugo.
it is in
Like
fact Seth Lugo. I think that's the easiest pick possible. I didn't necessarily know that it was going to be that easy when I wrote the question. Um,
SP7, SP7 this year, Matt.
there's
That
no
is
way. There's no way he's doing that again. I
unless he
mean,
develops seven more pitches that we don't know about that hasn't happened yet in baseball. I just don't see it. It's just not happening.
either that or the Kansas City Royals have something seriously cooking between Lugo
Correct.
and Reagans that nobody else has been able to figure
Sure.
out.
Sure.
There's, I mean, sure. In San Diego in 2023, he pitched 146 and a third innings with a 3.57 ERA, 8 wins, and technically more strikeouts per nine than this year.
Dude, he has the
But
SP7. He
He's
is
got
the
16
SP7.
got 16 wins in almost 200 innings pitched and a 3.05 ERA.
He was even in that year, he was SP 50 in 2023. He is SP7. Just like factoring in the wins, right? Like you just brought up the wins. Like
Yeah.
just saying like 16 wins or 12 or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
he pitched 20 he started 26 games in 2023, he had 8 wins. He started 31 this year and has 16 wins.
And counting. Like we don't know
And
that
counting,
could
right.
end up
There's
17 or 18 and based on the end of the year. So
yes.
yeah, I think easy answer Seth
Mm.
Lugo there.
It's yeah, there's if he's better than SP50 next year, call it money in the bank, but, like, I I cannot wait to see just how overdrafted Seth Lugo is gonna be because, hey, they figured it out with Cole Reagan, so why not Seth Lugo? Because
Yes.
there's no way a 35-year-old repeats, right?
Yep. No way.
I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Yes.
It's unreal. And then here's an interesting one here to cap it off. Guys from ADP 100 through 150 in 2024 who are going to go top 50 in 2025.
Yeah, I think this one was pretty easy for me. I said when we were like previewing this list,
Yeah.
I did not scroll very far into the hundreds
No,
to
you did
find my
not.
answer. And I didn't even look at the rest of the list, truthfully. I just stopped at number 104. It's Cattell Marte. Like obviously last year was resurgent year after that random non-dead ball year that Cattell Marte had, where he hit 32 home runs, had 100 runs, almost had 100 RBIs, and you're like, Cattell Marte? And then like the next couple of years, injuries plagued him. Well, the lockout shortened season, injury plagued season. Then we get a good version, like a decent version of 22, but you're like, yeah, that 30 home run season was a fluke. Then you kind of saw it last year, but
Yep.
2024 was just like reliving 2019 all over again with Ketel Marte, and even better because he's has the same amount of home runs, few less RBIs, but he's played 20 less games than he did, and the injuries have plagued Ketel Marte this year, and yet even with the injuries, 32 home runs, 85 runs, 87 ribbies, um, and like the guy's hitting 290. So easy for me to say like I didn't I could have looked at the rest of the list, but also like you just don't get that type of production from second base. Like despite just 474 at bats, he's second in second base scoring this year behind Jose Altuve. Second. Second. And he would have massacred Altuve's fantasy point total if he plays probably 15 more games, right? If he gets to 140, 150, it wouldn't have even been a competition. So I think Ketel Marte, without a doubt, now back-to-back seasons and now 3 in his career that look like this. Yeah, sign me up for that guy being, your number 1 scoring second baseman in 2025.
Yeah, I that's a good pick. I am checking on one thing because I have a guy who's way outside this list who I think may jump up that high. I have a
Okay.
couple inside the list, but one of them who was way outside this ranking range, who's probably going to be a rookie of the year. Jackson Merrill went 379 last
It's a
year.
good one. It's a good one.
I mean, he's right now, according to Fangraphs F War, the fourth highest WAR outfielder in baseball.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The 3 that are ahead of him are Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Jarren Duran.
Yes. Those
And
guys
by
are
the way,
good.
Duran went outside this range too at 152, so technically I can't pick those. Um,
That's 1, 3, and 4 in your American League MVP voting, by the way.
yeah, but both of those guys could be top 50 picks. Um, I'm gonna say Chris Sale
Yeah,
again.
just
I hate to
triple up, triple down, Matt. Just keep
I
going,
mean,
Chris
I hate
Sale.
to keep beating the drum, but it's hard to not to envision Chris Sale jumping from 132 last year to top
Agreed.
50 this year.
Agreed.
I mean, to give you an idea of how many pitchers went in the top 50 last year, you have to get to Tariq Skubal as the 13th pitcher, technically 12th if we take out Shohei, went at 50.35 per for ADP, and he was the 12th pitcher off the board. Do we think Chris Sale's coming off the board in the top 12 pitchers?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would imagine that he would make that jump. But again, you want a really sneaky guy who's going to shoot way up. I don't. It's not even sneaky, but just based on where he was last year, Jackson Merrill, um, I think makes that jump from like almost 400 to top 50.
Love that. I mean, where is he? I just saw him. He's the 36th ranked fantasy player right now. And he really didn't get started until
Yeah,
a
he's
couple
played
months into the year.
124
Yeah.
games. He didn't really, or 141, I guess. Um,
It was just bad the first couple months.
yeah,
There
well, he
wasn't
was also learning a position
right,
he's literally never played
right, right.
because San Diego has shortstops literally everywhere
Yes, they do.
on the field.
They sure do. Right field, center field, shortstop, second base. Yeah, they're all
Pretty sure their first
Machado
baseman
third.
has played shortstop too.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so.
I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
maybe just Kyle Higashioka is the only
I
non-shortstop they
I
have.
think their catcher, yeah, Luis Ariz could play short if you needed him to. He's their DH. Tatis was clearly a shortstop till they moved into the outfield. Profar,
Machado,
as we said, was a
Machado,
shortstop. Machado came
Machado.
up as a shortstop. Jackson Merrill was a shortstop. Bogarts is their shortstop. Cronenworth could play shortstop. Solano was a shortstop. He's also playing first base. Higashioka, you probably wouldn't want him short.
No.
Elias Diaz, the bench catcher, no, not so good. Tyler Wade, I think, has played shortstop. If I'm not mistaken, he's on their bench.
He has.
So yeah, literally
Has.
everybody is a shortstop for San Diego. Um, but yeah, that would be my pick for my picks for guys to shoot up into the top 50 there.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So
Just like the length of this podcast.
yes, it has been in depth. It has been revealing. We have talked about guys we've missed on, guys we've hit on, patting our own, patting ourselves on the back for jobs well done. Also being regrettable for guys that we just straight up missed on. Hoped we did better. And with that, and discussed the unicorn that is Shohei Ohtani and his just magicalness on a baseball field. It's unbelievable. With that, we wrap up the season of Caught Stealing, Fantasy Alarm Baseball Podcast. Draft guide should be coming out at some point, I would imagine near the beginning of the season, the beginning of the new year. Fully loaded with all sorts of stuff there. So, hope the last week and a half of your fantasy baseball season goes well for you. Hope you get all those points you need to go move up in the positions. And I hope whatever team you root for finishes out strong, whether it be a playoff team or you're just hoping the White Sox don't set the all-time loss record at this point.
Well,
Um, we'll see. I, I don't know. Any other final words there, Grande?
no, just a fun season. Watching your guys' show, joining the show, and we appreciate everyone out there at Fantasy Alarm, in the FA Nation, in the family, for tuning in and listening to the show. Never be afraid to reach out to either of us on the old X machine. You can see both of our handles below. Never be afraid to leave comments in the YouTube section of the show if you have fantasy baseball questions. Never be afraid to join the Fantasy Alarm Discord for all your fantasy baseball um, questions and trades and whatever you have. If it's dynasty, if it's whatever, we are in there all the time answering questions because we want you guys to feel as welcome to our community as you can be, and there's a reason why we call our community a family, right? Because that is the vibe we look for. So, um, it's not a serious, like, we're very professional, but also obviously you guys can tell Matt and I are friends on
Yes.
and off out of the podcast. So it's like it's a very easy conversation, part of the whole family vibe, right? Everything's a very easygoing conversation. So again, appreciate you guys, Matt and Colby. We appreciate you, the FA Nation, for tuning into our show weekly, tuning into our show sometimes twice weekly, with all our superlatives and our reading our draft guide, buying our draft guide, buying the cheat sheet, drafting your teams, and if you've won or are winning a fantasy baseball championship, in the Discord we have a winner circle channel that we've already seen some fantasy baseball
Yep.
championships won. Um,
You
be
can
don't
rest
be
assured you will see screenshots of Grande and I the moment the final pitch of the
yes.
season is thrown.
Don't be afraid to throw your winners in there. If you want to just throw it in the fantasy baseball chat in general, because that's where you spent your time answering questions or getting your questions answered by Matt and by Colby, by all means do it. And the rest of the team in general, whoever was in there answering questions. I know Matt and Colby were mostly doing it, but don't be afraid to head into and gloat a little bit. Get your wins on, and so we appreciate every single person that has tuned into the show this year, and we'll be back bigger, better, stronger. Uh, maybe not better next year, but we'll be back next year with more caught stealing